Mr. Nevinson, Mrs. Nevinson, Jessie and I were in conference. He had just told us all about the spectral figure he saw beckoning to him during the playing of the flute music last time. None of us made any comment, and there were no smiles. We waited for him to go on, and after a silence, he said that from what he could calculate, on the next occasion we heard the flute, Jessie would begin to be aware of this ghost figure, and would probably feel the urge to follow it outside. It would require an immense effort of will to resist the inclination. He spoke from experience. In fact, the impulse was such an overpowering one that he had no doubt that he himself would have yielded to it that evening had not Milton stopped him at the door. Until the danger we were up against had passed, we would have to take strict precautions to ensure that neither himself nor Jessie were allowed to give in to this urge. He had no doubt now that the woman at Horstonland, Matilda, had met her death because she had yielded to the impulse and followed this apparition when it beckoned. It was true, he said, that she had been bitten by a snake, but the fact remained that she had been lured to her fate by this sinister spectre. It was another tense and trying moment in the ghost adventure, My Bones and My Flute. Mr. Nevinson continued talking to us. What he was going to suggest, he said, was that a guard be placed over Jessie and himself, because from what he could note, force might be necessary to restrain the two of them when the phenomenon occurred. We would have to take Rayburn into our confidence and elect him a guard over one of the two, himself for preference. It would be rather distasteful, but there was no help for it. As Jessie's guard, he would suggest Milton, and perhaps Nell could stand by in the event of Milton's needing any assistance. What had we to say to this proposal? Instantly, Mrs. Nevinson said, "I don't like it at all, Ralph. Surely the situation isn't so desperate that we must have that black man hanging around us in the house here every moment of the day." "You needn't adopt such a tone, Nell." Her husband frowned. "It's only a suggestion. If you can think of a better one, let's hear it." "Why couldn't Milton take care of you? I could see after Jessie if the need arose. I simply can't understand why it should be necessary to have Rayburn in constant attendance. Mother doesn't realize how serious this thing is. It's because it doesn't affect her that she can speak like this," Jessie said. "Very well, Jessie, very well. Control yourself, please," said her father. For the next half an hour or so, Mr. Nevinson argued with his wife, but she stubbornly refused to hear of Rayburn sleeping upstairs with us. Such a thing was unheard of, and she could see no need for it. She held out that she would be adequate protection for Jessie if anything happened, and that I could see after her husband. She had never in her life hobnobbed with niggers, and she saw no reason why she should do so now. And what was more, she felt certain Ralph was making more fuss than was really necessary. How could any silly ghost have the power to lure him and Jessie out of the house to their deaths? The idea was absurd and fantastic, she said. Jessie interrupted several times, nervously, hysterically. Eventually, Mr. Nevinson, who throughout this harangue had shown remarkable patience, sat forward and uttered a sound of disgust. "You can have it your way then, Nell," he said. "We'll let things remain as they are. You see after Jessie, and Milton will see after me, and I trust you won't live to regret it." His wife laughed. "Really, Ralph, you surprise me. You're speaking like a sensational novelette." "Mother, you're too dull. That's what's wrong with you," Jessie flared. "You can't see further than your nose." "Look here, child, I think the best thing you can do is to go to bed," her mother said. "Your nerves are in a state. Take 10 drops of phosphorine." "I don't want to hear anything from you. You're impossible, and I'm not going to bed. I'm staying in here with Daddy and Milton." "Oh, certainly, as you please. You can all do whatever you like," said her mother, and rising went into her room, her manner decidedly frosty. Jessie mumbled, "She doesn't care a jot, just because she's not going through it herself.
It's selfishness. She's a selfish pig. I always knew it.
That will do, Jessie. Be silent, her father said. I smiled and patted her arm and told her not to be upset, speaking in an awkward, self-conscious voice. I don't think we'll be bothered again until tomorrow. It won't happen tonight. At least, the chances are that it won't. It seems to come at longish intervals, I told her. Her father said, "Let's go and sit on the veranda until bedtime, Milton. It's a bit stuffy in here. Jessie, come with us." Jessie and I hunted out 2 deck chairs, which, on arrival the evening before, we had carefully selected and solemnly dedicated to our own exclusive use. We placed them side by side on the southern veranda while Mr. Nevinson settled himself into the hammock that was slung up nearby. For well over an hour we remained out there, my host silent and puffing continuously at his pipe, Jessie and I exchanging a remark at intervals. She grew much calmer as the evening progressed, and her voice lost its shrill note. Even the baboons did not trouble her after a while, though once when a rather loud gurgling splash came from the river, she put out her hand and touched my wrist with a mumbled exclamation, adding at once, "It must have been a fish, a pirai or something." The fireflies kept up their intricate dance in the darkness, silent arcs and spangles of radiance. The beat of the petter plant downstream had become an indigo blanket of sound, almost unheard, a background against which the occasional chirp of a frog would stand out like a pink wet petal. More than once I was aware of movement inside the cottage, the footsteps of my hostess. The windows of the 2 rooms Mr. Nevinson and I occupied looked out onto the section of the veranda on which we were, and I felt certain it must have been my imagination when I heard a slight sound from Mr. Nevinson's room. I glanced at Jessie in the chair beside me to see if she, too, might have noticed it. In the starlit gloom she seemed unusually still, and it came upon me that she had fallen into a doze, so I did not disturb her. I heard the hammock creak. I glanced aside and made out the dim shape of my host's head. It was twisted round as though he was staring towards one of the bedroom windows, and in that instant I realized that it might not have been simply a fancy of mine, that I had heard that sound in his room. "Did you hear something, sir?" "Pretty certain I did." He sounded puzzled. "Did you? Well, I thought I heard a sort of footstep or something. It seemed to be in your room." Jessie stirred and sat forward, her voices evidently having roused her. "What's the matter, Milton?" Nothing," I said hastily, not wanting to alarm her. "I was just asking your father something. You seem to have been in a doze." Mr. Nevinson had got out of the hammock, and I could see that it was his intention to go into his room to investigate. Jessie was just asking him if he was going to bed when we heard a thump and a half-stifled shriek from the direction of the dining room. It was Mrs. Nevinson. We heard her cry, "Oh, my God! Oh, my God! Ralph! Milton! Come quickly!" It was on the following day that I recorded in my diary the events of that evening. Reading through what I wrote, I find myself compelled to smile with an air of indulgence. That affectionate indulgence one sometimes experiences when reflecting on the impetuosities and immature posturings of one's extreme youth. I was more than 2 decades younger then, and I fear that in writing I had a weakness for the dramatic phrase and also an obsession for detail that to me now seems not only immature but almost vulgar. Describing the happenings of that evening, I wrote, "Then came the evening, fantasy, horrible, inconceivable, grotesque fantasy." The space allotted by Messrs. Charles Letts, the diary people, for the day's entries had not been sufficient for what I had to record, and there is a sheet of ruled notepaper pasted in, on which my jottings are extended. Both sides of this sheet are covered with my writing, and there is one passage in particular that occurs near the middle of the unruled side of the paper, which for some reason tickles me immensely. It goes, "Mrs. N's face chalky white. but the blood glowed pink at throat. Startling, unusual picture. Increased air fantasy. The kind of situation that I learned to expect in my bones and my flute.